Sahana Vavatu, Sahanao Bhunaktu, Sahaviryang Karavavahai, Tejasvina Vadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So we have finished chapter 2, whose name is Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga means knowledge, and that word yoga doesn't mean yoga in sense of asanas, it means topic. So when you use the word yoga, that just means the topic of, in this case, karma, karma yoga. So that's chapter 3. And the prior was chapter 2, which was Sankhya Yoga. Okay, so topic of self-knowledge. And now the topic of karma. Karma means two things. One, it means action. So right now I'm writing down, that's karma, that's action. But also karma means the result of action. So karma pala. Karma pala. So when people say to you, that's my karma, oh, that's my karma, you know, they don't mean, oh, that's my action. They mean, oh, that's my karma pala. That's my result of prior action. Result or consequence of something that was done before. So karma yoga, which is introduced in the previous verse, 72 in chapter 2. And you would think that having gone through self-knowledge, which is the highest revelation of what is. So it's supposed to help you and pacify your mind, but it doesn't always work in the way that you expected, because we resist. You know, we could tell you a story, like a story that's, you know, say 2 pages long, but you only capture some parts of that story. You're not going to capture all the names, all the characters, and so on. So this is how the mind is. So there's a lot more work. So Arjuna should, you know, say, thank you, Krishna, you taught very well. And now I'm going to go and do what is to be done. That would be the perfect world. However, he still asks a question, and he says, I still don't see how acting is going to solve my dilemma, my confusion in this world, because there's a contradiction that is being brought up, and I will introduce that contradiction slowly. However, I want to ensure that you, right, as a listener, and we're all Arjunas, right, and Krishna is teaching us, and Arjuna is, you know, relatively satisfied. He's heard these introductory ideas, and they're not basic. They are the teaching of Vedanta. So you cannot say, give me something more advanced. There is no such thing. It doesn't work like that. There is no, oh, I've heard from you, now let me go and get the real stuff. And you may think this is just here, but it's anywhere. It happens with any teacher. My teacher, she's done a course with Swami Dayananda for 3.5 years. And she told me that students, there were Indians at that time who attended Swami Dayananda, they said, you know, now that we've heard this teaching for 3.5 years, now we're ready for the real stuff. Now we're ready to, you know, get into the real Upanishads, the real knowledge. And not just after the course, but even during the course, you know, after Swami Dayananda would expound Mandukya Upanishad or Chandogya Upanishad or Mundaka or Katha Upanishad, then the students would say, well, this was great teaching, but now we're really ready for the next Upanishad. The next Upanishad is going to tell us the good stuff. It doesn't work like this, because every Upanishad and the Gita says exactly the same teaching. It's only your mind that says that I want something more. Have you ever heard the song Never Enough from The Greatest Showman? What a wonderful song. It was sung by Lauren Allred. She was on Britain's Got Talent, and she surprised everyone that she sang that song. And there was some lyrics in that song, all this all the stars, it's never enough. Towers of gold, it's still not enough. So no matter what I give you, it's never enough. And then the lyrics, for me, it's not enough for me, never, never for me, it's not enough. So, all the spotlights, all the sun, all the stars, no matter what you give me, it's never enough for me. And then for me, right? So it's such a, loud voice. For me, it's never enough. And this is kind of what Arjuna is still feeling right now, never enough. And that's because he's not quite in touch with the truth, because he is the whole. But there's still that voice in the mind saying, never enough. Nothing's enough for me. No matter how much I get, what I get, how much money I have, how much success I have, it's never enough. So this voice has to reduce slowly. So this is what the 17 chapters will be there for. Okay. And he also said, Krishna, to Arjuna, to us, that this knowledge, once you hear it as we have, you can't go back. So, once you have your first partner or your first, first paycheck or something, that whole kind of that innocence, like one day when I have it, I will be, walking, sliding down the rainbow. That whole image collapses because you've had it now and you know what it's about. So when you hear this knowledge, you can't go back to your old style. You may kind of think that you're still the same person, but that's because you still have residue. There's still those clouds that are covering the sun. So it's not like the sun is not there. It's just that the clouds are still residual thinking and they have to blow away. And it's hard to blow them away, isn't it? So that's why, you have to be patient. Like the bamboo tree, it spreads its roots and you don't see anything above the ground for the first 2 years, 1 or 2 years, but the roots are just spreading wide and wide. And then suddenly after those 2 years, it just starts to shoot out very quickly. So that's one reason why you could listen to this, but not be quite, expecting that magical change, that sudden transformation. The second reason why he said this is that you can't go back, is that even if the knowledge didn't take place, then you form the new impressions. And once those impressions are formed, then even if your physical body died and you're reborn, even then those impressions get carried over. In fact, in chapter 6, was it 9? Chapter 6 or 9, Krishna says that once you get exposed to this knowledge, that's it. You can never fall down. You can never kind of regress. It's always a journey upwards. So suppose you don't get it and moksha is not, you haven't understood the, your nature, then it's fine, because next life you simply get reborn in the right environment. You get very quickly connected to the right teaching. In fact, it's good. Even if you get born next life, you will be surrounded by robots and lots of AI. You'll be marrying a robot. There will be no problems with domestic affairs. You tell them exactly what to do, what to say. And then you can buy skin. You can buy young skin, you can buy older skin, and you can nicely cover your robot with that and customize it. And then you can tell your robot, you're going to be my guru, and you're going to speak the language of Vedanta. So either way, it's not a loss for you. However, if you did get it, and even then you're kind of happy, exhilarated. In fact, when the knowledge does take place, it depends. There's no kind of this imaginary thing that we read in books, although that can be the case. You can be very happy and high for a couple of months, maybe a couple of years, but that too is going to come down, because anything that starts is going to come down. But what doesn't come down is your understanding of who you are. So even if you did get it, then there is a certain waiting period that you have to let these clouds blow away. Okay, so what Krishna pointed out in chapter 2 was two very important concepts, and without one of them, they both crumble. The first one is critical thinking. Critical thinking is Viveka. See, we do have a lot of great, wonderful, critical thinkers in this world, in all fashions and all areas of our life. And they're able to look at things from, look at the depth of things and analyze them and work them out. And it's a very admirable trait to have that, to be able to think and to get to the bottom of the matter. However, what's missing today, and it's very rare to find this combination, is along with your Viveka, your critical analysis, cognitive, introspection, is your dispassion, your vairagya. Now, dispassion means is that, suppose you have a critical thinking towards one party, like the Republicans. You're able to look at the matter very objectively, and but objectively in reference to one view. You see? So it's not really objective. It's only objective towards what I have invested myself into. So this whole me being invested in something, in one thing, out of the 5 things, I am invested in this. That is a loss of dispassion. That means your critical thinking is going towards one of the 5, but you're ignoring how are these other connected and what parts they have in the bigger picture. Therefore, Krishna brings forward just having critical thinking, the ability to assess a situation, is not enough. You need to be able to ask yourself, am I invested in one particular viewpoint of life that I'm looking at? If you are, that's loss of dispassion. Now you say, well, isn't Advaita Vedanta also are you saying that it's a view? It's one of the 5 views? Is Advaita Vedanta a view? Like it's a perspective of life? What do you think? Like there are perspectives of life, and Advaita Vedanta is one perspective of many. No, why not? Shaking your head, it's no, but why is it not a perspective?
Vedanta is in every aspect of our lives. In everything that we do and everything that we say, in everything, the breathing, the purpose of being alive is Vedanta.
Okay, good. Would someone like to expand upon that in your words?
I would say,
yeah.
I would say it's because it's not prescriptive. It's really just, it's kind of opening your eyes to, well, as you said, critical thinking, but also from the perspective that, it's keeping things like Dharma and whatnot at the forefront, but it's not being prescriptive. Like you really have to look at every situation and every circumstance and make the best of it that you can, kind of guided by the teaching.
Okay, let me ask in a different fashion. How would you demonstrate that Vedanta is not a perspective? If you were having a debate, and someone says Advaita Vedanta is a perspective like any other, therefore it's no different. How would you debate that in a short statement?
Not space and time bound.
That's a belief. I could argue that. I could say to you, you can't prove that right now. You need to prove to me something right now to demonstrate. Leo?
Answering your previous question, which is the same question, but I think it's because it includes dispassion, as meaning if you're tied to your view that you already have, and then you apply critical thinking to that view that you already have, and you keep clinging to that view, you will maybe expound on that view, but you might not see the whole. So you're going to see the 30%, but not the 70%. Whereas I think in Vedanta it's not contaminated by holding into one view. It's trying to see the whole thing as it is.
That's true. However, I still need proof that Advaita Vedanta is not a view. Stephen?
I was just going to say it's all encompassing, so it includes all views, both sides.
Much better. Okay, closer. Arkiri?
At the risk of being contradictory, I would say that it is a view and a perspective, and it could only be from a perspective of a single person. What it does for me, if anything, is offers a singular perspective that points at that which isn't a perspective.
Okay, I could now still argue that and say that is your perspective, Arkiri.
Exactly. Inherently, we can only have perspectives. So to try and make something not a perspective is, via critical thinking, is inherently faulty.
Okay, okay. Amrita?
I was going to echo what Stephen said earlier. So if we're looking at it from a logic, like a critical thinking perspective, Advaita is everything. So any alternative perspective would sit within the definition of everything anyway. But I don't know how to prove that based on what Arkiri said, because even that is a perspective. It's like, I think Advaita is everything, but how do I conclusively prove that? I'm not sure.
Got it. So you're in line with Stephen, and it's 100% correct. However, it's still missing, as you pointed out, the proof right now.
Yeah.
Kendall?
I would say the proof would be bringing it down to your own perspective. And that's what I think a lot of Vedanta teachings are trying to do, is bring it to I guess your experiential. What's your experience? Which we all have that same first person subjective experience.
Okay. Okay, I could still objective kind of argue that and say that, you know, it is bringing back to your own experience, but that is your experience, Kendall. That is not my experience, you see? So I'm looking for stronger logic. Sheila, did you have your hand up?
Although it is an individual's subjective experience, it is the same for everyone. Any sentient has that same experience. If you ask that question, you'll get the same answer.
Okay. Okay. This is very close. Very, very nice, Sheila. Okay. And Greg, one last one.
Yeah. So the fact that one is aware that there's different perspectives is the proof, right?
Very nice.
I mean, because you're the subject of everything. You're aware that there's different opinions, then that's the proof.
Okay, that's the closest one. However, I could even argue that and say everyone is aware of one's perspective, but your awareness is different from my awareness. So now you need to argue that too. How would you do that? How would you demonstrate that your awareness is not different from my awareness? Because it's true. I am aware of my perspectives. You're aware of your perspectives. Now, the argument is 100% agree, Mr. Vedantan. However, your awareness is different from my awareness. You know, it doesn't prove that we have same awareness. And yet Vedanta says there is only one awareness. So we need to show that.
Wouldn't that be an opportunity to talk about the 3 states of consciousness, and particularly in deep sleep? Right.
Okay. Okay. That's definitely a method. Yeah. That would require some time for them to listen. Okay. Well done. Good, Greg. Lorena?
I would just say Vedanta is through methodologies, the prakriyas, is showing you that awareness has no attributes. So through those methodologies, through that shabda and trusting the guru to expound that, and through those methodologies, it proves the panchabhuta and how everything can be neti and come to the reality that way.
Okay, so you have to. So Lorena is saying is that you have to simplify for the individual. You have to show them you can get rid of certain things, right? We call this Anvaya Vyatireka Prakriya. You get rid of the, for example, your body. My body is here. So body is I am. Okay, I am. You see this? Body is I am. Now you can, let's call it the waking. Okay. Now suppose you're daydreaming, then body is not. Okay, you cross out the body in a daydream, but I am. Okay, you know when you daydream, right? People usually go up to you like this. You're like looking, staring. People go like this. You're not responsive. When they touch you, you're not responsive, and they have to sometimes do a a loud clap, and only then you snap. So this means that there was no body, because if I am was stuck to the body, then if you touch the body, you would be touching I am. You would be waking up the I am. So in a daydream, it shows that the body is not, but I am is. Okay. Now in the dream, body is. Do you have a body, a physical body in the dream? Inside your dream, do you look at your body and you say, see, right now, suppose you shake your head. Why are you shaking your head now? Because you're in a waking state. You're not in a dream state. You see, so from the standpoint of the dream state, the body is not. Okay, where's your body in the dream state? You could have hunger. Do you experience hunger of the body, of the physical body in the dream? No. Do you experience physical pain of your body in the dream? No. So from the standpoint of the dream, body is not, but I am. Okay, the I am, the awareful being. Now in deep sleep, okay, mind is also in dream. Now in deep sleep, the body, do you have a body from the standpoint of deep sleep? See, suppose you shake your head. I know what people are going to say, yes, right? But you're only doing it now. You see, the point of this is to establish what is it that is non-negatable. What can you not negate? So in the sleep body, I could touch you in your deep sleep, right? And you're not going to wake up. You're not thinking about your life in deep sleep. So body is not, and mind is not. Otherwise, if you had a mind in your deep sleep, you would you won't be able to sleep. Isn't that true? Can you go to sleep when your mind's racing? No. You can only go to sleep when the mind resolves. It's impossible to go to sleep as long as there is anxiety of the mind or a mind is there. So the mind has to resolve for sleep to take place. Now, body is not and mind is not. So the body is crossed out and the mind is crossed out. But what remains? I am. So what's the point of this? It wants to establish there is one invariable across the variables. These are all variables. And there is one constant, non-negatable principle that is in every state of experience. And thereby in daydream, in hypnosis, in samadhi, there is one non-negatable principle, I am. So this is just a demonstration to help us to think about this question that Vedanta is not a perspective. It is something that you cannot negate. What is a perspective? Something that you can negate from a different standpoint. You can negate the body from the standpoint of the daydream. You can negate the mind from the standpoint of deep sleep, but you cannot negate the awareful presence, I. Okay? Therefore, what is a perspective? Perspective is something that can be negated. So is Vedanta a perspective? No. Why? Because it shows you realities that through your analysis, you see that they cannot be contradicted, no matter how you look at it, assuming the mind is qualified. Now, what makes the mind qualified? Karma yoga. Do people have karma yoga in their lives? No, which is why even if many come to Vedanta classes, they won't click. What's this? This is going over my head. No, give me Netflix, that kind of thing.
I just wanted to add, if it's okay, that technically I would say it's not dissimilar to the scientific method where you're not proving something, you take a perspective and try and disprove it, which in the case of Advaita is impossible.
Yeah, you cannot disprove the subject. The subject always remains. If the subject says, I've negated, look at this, I've negated me, I've negated me, I've negated I, well then what's there left to recognize the presence of the absence of I?
And that would be Advaita, which again is a signpost.
So there's always one invariable, constant presence. Amrita, you still have your hand up?
Yeah, I apologize if this is a silly question, but it's not, it's just not clicking in my head yet. The deep sleep part, I'm not there though. Does that make sense? Like, I don't remember deep sleep. So what we're proving that, like, that part feels like a logic gap for me. Because the awareness that perhaps I become aware of when I'm meditating, and then like I can like observe everything happening, and so I know the awareness is there.
Yeah.
But in deep sleep, I'm not, like, nothing is there. So that feels like a blank for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you just answered your own question. You said deep sleep, nothing is there. So see, if I say to you, hey, Amrita, did you sleep last night?
I assume I did, because
Okay.
I can't remember it.
Okay, let me ask you a different question. Suppose I say, hey, Amrita, like suppose you're tired and you say, Andre, I want to go to sleep. In that statement, are you telling me, Andre, I'm tired, I want to go and dream?
No.
So then when you say, Andre, I'm tired, I want to go to sleep, you don't mean I want to go to dream. So you have to mean something else. You have to mean that place other than dream.
Yeah. Cool. No, I got it.
Now, if the knowledge completely took place, then Arjuna would be happy and he will be able to do what is to be done in the world. But he doesn't. So he asks a certain question to Krishna. And that question will be in verse 1 and 2, which I will now chant, of chapter 3, Karma Yoga. Arjuna uvacha jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tat kim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava Vyamishrene vavakyena buddhim mohayasi vame tadekam vada nishchitya yena shreyo hamapnuyam.
Arjuna said, Janardana, that's Krishna, if in your contention knowledge is better than action, why then do you impel me into this gruesome action? Kesava, that's Krishna. With words that are seemingly contradictory, you seem to confuse my mind. Deciding for good, which is better, tell me the one thing by which I shall gain liberation.
Arjuna says to Krishna, you have taught me very well, and I've understood that understanding Atma is the final goal, and moksha is the ultimate goal of life, and that's what life was given to us. And I need for that the time, the strength, the resources, the concentration to undo my thought patterns, to meditate, to clean up my mind, to contemplate on this knowledge, to think about the models that we have just provided, to get deeply immersed in this knowledge. You have taught that very well, Krishna, and I've understood that self-knowledge is the only solution to moksha. Why? Because action cannot show me something that I already am. Action cannot show me something that's already complete. What can an action do? It cannot provide something that is already full. Why? Because every action lasts a certain amount of time, right? Like 5 minutes or 1 hour. And if I have 1 hour of action, then I'm going to get 1 hour of result. Okay. So 1 hour or 2 hours equals 2 hours of result. Right? This makes sense. So if you meditate for 10 minutes versus 30 minutes, assuming you can meditate for 30 minutes, you will know that 30 minutes, you'll be able to drop much deeper into that state of relaxation. So it's just logic. So every action, you work 5 days a week and you get a salary. If you work 7 days a week, you get a bigger salary. So this means that action of itself becomes a highly time-bound, limited, right, utility that you can use to help you. But not only that, but that action, which is limited, to whom is it going towards? Towards a limited person. So now, even if you have 1 hour plus 1 hour plus 1 hour, and suppose you meditate for 20,000 hours in your life. So 20,000 hours in your life you meditated. How much of a result, how well will your mind be, calm? It will be healthy 20 hours worth of meditation. 20,000 hours worth of meditation. Okay, that's quite a calm, peaceful mind, lovely mind indeed. But it's not 40,000 hours. It's not 41,000. It's not 41.1 hours. So there's always more. So this means that no amount of action can you ever add up to get a limitless result. Now, what are you seeking in life? Are you seeking limitation, or are you seeking total freedom from limitation, total limitlessness, fullness? You see?
Yeah.
So if I offer you, 2 options, I say, hey, would you like $1 or would you like, infinite amount of dollars? You say, well, $1 is, not enough at all today for anything, maybe bubble gum. So give me infinite. I only give you 2 options, 1 or infinite. You will have to choose infinite. So it's a no-brainer. Now, when it comes to action, suppose you argue this logic and you say, no, Andre, you can add amount of actions and you can get an infinite result, because that is an objection in Brahma Sutra. Then what do we have to follow? What do we show you then? Even if you got a limitless result, that means an infinite result, who's enjoying that limitless result? A limited being. A limited being with a mind that is 25 years old will be able to enjoy a lot more pleasure than someone that's 90. Because 90, what happened? Your testosterone has gone down, your dopamine has gone down, your cholesterol has gone down, everything's gone down. So this means that even if you could get a limitless result through action, that is going onto an I, everything goes into I am, who is by nature limited. Therefore, action is not the solution here. So, Arjuna has applied his Viveka, critical thinking, and he's seen this logical flaw. And he says, clearly, knowledge is better than action. And for that reason, let me leave everything so that I can exclusively pursue self-knowledge. So this is just a logical conclusion. And what Krishna is going to say is that this kind of thinking doesn't work because it's placing this paradigm in a black or white thinking, right? It's either this or it's that. Either, right, leave everything and pursue knowledge, or I stay as a householder and I get entangled in action, and, right, and in that mode, you can hardly find any time for moksha. So it's either one or the second. And what makes sense is I have to get rid of all of the actions, demands, and responsibilities of life in order to pursue self-knowledge. How many of you have had a time at some point of just leaving it all and, contemplating and, yeah, me too. You just thought, This life is, it's just so kind of challenging. Even if you're married, you've got marital affairs, you've got children, you've got demands. They want your attention. You've got business. They customers, they give you a hard time. They also give you a good time. You have to pay attention to your expenses and your losses. If you are, someone famous, then God help you, because you're going to be constantly focused on all of the attention that people are giving you. And that's very addictive, and it's very attractive to be wanted, to be kind of desired so much. And then you have so many friends, and, you just go over it for a cake or some dessert. And it's so nice to be in that company of people. And you think, wow, this is so nice. I like family. Family is the way to go. And you say, this is definitely what I want to do. I don't have time for moksha, not in this life. Next life, I will renounce it all, and then I will focus on moksha. This will be my last life, where I will engage in these, marital affairs and friendship and companionship next life. How many times have you said that before, if you could remember? Many lifetimes. So it's almost like every life we just say the same thing. No, this next life I will attain. This life, it will be my last life. The next life, right? Arjuna understands very clearly the highest goal is understanding my nature, and that requires, like anything, time, energy, and effort. Like building a business, you need to focus. Someone said, I don't know who, but someone said, if people spend as much time building their venture or their enterprise, their home self-employed business, if they spend that amount of time on moksha, most people would have understood by now. But we don't, because, when it comes to the world, it's so much more exciting. People are there and they're giving you attention. And so you're very much motivated to show your glories to the world and share your glories to the world, and you get acknowledgement, and it's very attractive. So Arjuna, seeing this, he wants a black or white solution. And this is the limitation of asking a question when you're thinking from a non-nuanced perspective. Hey, just give me, is it like this or is it like that? Have you ever been confronted with this kind of a black or white thinking question? Stop the philosophizing. Just tell me, is it like this or is it like that? But who's asking that? The person like Arjuna, who is still in a non-nuanced mode of thinking. He cannot see the grays of shade in between. Okay, so this is his objection, and he is disturbed by this because he sees a contradiction. On one hand, Krishna, in the entire chapter 2, you've been saying self-knowledge is the only solution to this beginningless, misapprehension of reality. And what has entangled me was action, doing actions and participating in the Kurukshetra. And now you're saying, no, Arjuna, just go and fight. Do your thing in the field. What are you talking about? You're telling me to go and participate and engage and marry and support my brothers and sisters and work and get employed and make it through this world. And now you're saying, and on the other hand, you're saying glorifying self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is the highest, and you need to spend all your time on self-knowledge, and self-knowledge is the most important. Resolve this for me. How do I see this? Where do things fit? Where does action fit, and where does self-knowledge fit? That's a contradiction, Krishna. I want this resolved. And this is a question that haunts many seekers at the start. They're torn. Should I just leave everything and leave my wife and husband? Or should I, so that I can pursue knowledge? Or can I stay and kind of work it out? Which is hardly, an option. It's either leave or stay. And if I stay, it's not possible. If I leave, it's possible. So Krishna has to resolve this. And he does so in verse 3. Let's see what Krishna says in verse 3. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Lokesmin Vividha Nishtha Pura Prokta Maya Nagha Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam.
Sri Bhagavan said, the sinless one, Arjuna, the twofold committed lifestyle in this world was told by me in the beginning, the pursuit of knowledge for the renunciates and the pursuit of karma yoga for those who pursue activity.
So it's exactly what we've been saying. Krishna here wants to firstly explicitly say that the highest knowledge is attained in two ways. He says, first, you can pursue self-knowledge at the exclusion of everything else. This is called the path of renunciation. So this means right now you all pack, go and get a little stick, put your belongings and walk to the Himalaya. Goodbye. Before you do that, let's see the second option. He says, continue with your existing lifestyle, with the existing situations that you're in already. Play your roles to the best of your ability. And while doing so, bring the knowledge, because your roles will give context to the knowledge. So this means both are pursuing knowledge. You see this? One of them is a sannyas, renouncing everything. The other is a grihasta, staying in the house, in the world, in duties. Both lead exactly the same to knowledge, to moksha. Again, to point out what and how this objection arose. The objection arose because if you look at action and you're honest to yourself, you will see that action entails and demands responsibilities, duties, attention. It tends to entangle. It tends to bring you take a lot of your time up. Those people that are around you, you cannot just dismiss them and say, I'm pursuing self-knowledge, leave me alone. They will require a certain amount of time, attention from you. If you don't give them that, then it will, it's going to cost you your own happiness, because they will leave you. And it seems that every role that you take up requires action, and action requires investment of you in the other. Okay. That's a common experience for all. And not only that, but those who leave the world, they're usually exalted. So you think, oh, they had the courage to leave it all. I want to be like that one. So it's very attractive to follow the renunciates, right? And in addition to that, it's a common universal thinking to think that, give me the shortest path. Just make it simple for me. The shortest path is leave action alone, give me knowledge. It's like when you're flying. Would you take a flight that has 4 layovers or just direct flight? You see, everyone would prefer, most prefer a direct flight. Some of them do prefer layovers because you get to learn a lot more. You get to kind of rest and so on. Others, most prefer a direct flight. Okay, so it's a universal thinking to seek for the path of least resistance. So Arjuna is seeking the path. He's seeing the grass is greener on the other side. And how is the grass greener? It's greener because on that side, I don't have so much responsibilities. On this side, I do. On that side, people, are taking care of me. On this side, I have to take care of myself. On that side, you don't have to answer emails and, and filter your junk SMSs trying to get your money from the bank account. On this side, you do. So you've got risk, right? But if you look at it, is it that easy to be on the other side? Suppose you go on the other side and you're now by yourself and you find yourself, near a highway, and it's just constant traffic, beeps and so on, traffic nonstop. Or you go to the other side and you realize, I don't have an air conditioner anymore, and my body is not very prone to keeping warm. So now I have to spend half of my time keeping myself warm. Or you go to the other side and you get food that it's not nutritious for you. It just doesn't give you vitamin B12 complex. It doesn't give you magnesium. It doesn't give you all these things that you need for your brain to think clearly. On the other side, you go and see that you've got a sannyasi next to you, and he just doesn't bath, and his smell constantly permeates the air, and you cannot focus. On the other side, you also realize that it's just not that utopian. You gotta wait for someone to bring you food, and you gotta ask for food, and you don't know, and you realize people are not giving me. Do they not respect sannyasis? What's wrong with people? So now you're bothered about how you're being treated and amount of responsibilities you have on the other side also. So this is the objection. But Arjuna for now sees the grass is greener on the other side. Okay. Now, Krishna is going to make a correction and say, let me show you, Arjuna, where roles have a purpose and how roles that you play can help you with the pursuit of knowledge. Okay, what mentality does Arjuna display about escaping problems?
He's creating polarities in his mind about what he perceives to be, that's the shortcut and that's the long way.
Yeah.
And so that's
good.
That's what I see.
Yeah. So do you do this sometimes, by the way? Not Lorena, but all of us. It's a rhetorical question. You create this kind of, it's better on the other side, right? So it's almost like wherever you are, that's the new standard for being compared to something better. And you get that better, and you say, maybe I should go back.
So the grass is greener, you don't know until you get there, and then when you get there, it's not so green, and then you think, you have like a sentimental idea of what the other grass was.
So that's a good point. Can you see now where life experience plays a part in this whole picture? How it shows you that, it's not as utopian as, person thinks, that wherever you are is most likely already the perfect place for you. Otherwise, you would have been somewhere else by now.
I was just going to offer that sometimes when you think the grass is greener, you get there and it's the same color grass.
It's the same color grass.
Same color, same green.
Yeah, ultimately, and you still have to prune it and mow it, and it's still work.
But that's the other thing I was going to say. There's still action, even as a sannyasi. There's still action. So actions are limited, as you said, and that limitation will never give you the truth of.
Let's see what Krishna says about what role actions have. Verse 4. Na karmanam anarambhat, na ishkarmyam purushoshnute, na cha sannyasana deva, siddhim samadhigacchati.
A person does not gain the state of actionlessness by non-performance of actions, nor does the person attain success, liberation, out of mere renunciation, sannyasa.
So this is a fancy way of saying that, firstly, don't think that renouncing actions will make moksha easier. And second of all, don't think that by continuing to perform your roles diligently, patiently, with hard work, don't think that that will hinder moksha. That's the first thing that Krishna says. So he makes it very clear, right? This thinking of black or white is erroneous. The reason why is because every action in this world, you need to help you see where your areas of work need to be looked into. Where are your blind spots? Where is it that your unconscious narratives are producing a kind of a limiting belief about what you can do, what you can't do? And all of this will help you to make that perfect soil that you can plant the knowledge, the seeds of knowledge. So if you go to the Himalaya and now you see these loud cars and the cold weather and the wind, and it irritates the person. Now, why does it irritate them? Because in the world, they haven't even learned to put up with the small things in the world. In a perfect environment where you have all of the chance to develop patience and empathy. Now, if I don't have that, then there's no chance to develop that in the times when you cannot afford to worry about being annoyed and agitated and so on. You just want to focus on the knowledge, but the mind is not allowing that. The second reason why leaving the world is not a solution according to Krishna is that the world isn't a problem. What is the problem? Your perception of the world is the problem. You see, the world is not a problem because some people see the world as a platform to engage with Ishvara's manifestations, to bring out the presence of divinity. It's a platform to help you see all that is here is Ishvara. And the world is a perfect place to do just that. The world serves you a place to discover your strengths, your weaknesses, to develop your self-belief in yourself that I can figure this out. I will do this. It's a place to refine your responses, those responses that have some, to polish those angularities, those sharp edges, to polish them up a little bit. It's a place to forgive. It's a place to release all of those emotional, emotional klingons, I call them emotional pull downs that are holding you from being more expressive, more yourself, more open with the environment, more receptive to nature, appreciating a simple sunset, a simple cloud, the clear weather, appreciating the trees, appreciating the air that you breathe. So the world is a perfect platform to do just that. So now to say that the world is a problem, that can only be one explanation. It's a perception error. Therefore, first thing that we have to know is that your environment is much less of an issue than your perception towards your environment. So if I were to ask you a question, I wonder how you would respond if there is right now a place that is causing you some tension. I wonder how much the place is doing that and how much your mind could be contributing. I really wonder if you could think about that now for a couple of moments. And what could those perceptions or storylines or background voices be telling you to make you consider your environment to be hostile or to be a distasteful place? I wonder how quickly could you reframe those inner storylines that are following like a broken record and intercept them ever so as naturally as you need to until they start to play a more pleasing tune and show you that this world is not meaningless, it is not hostile, rather it is a offering for you, nicely sculpted by the hands of God, just for you, to help you come closer to him. There was once a statement made by Sheila, you're here, which I have not forgot because it touched me at the park, cricket park. And she said that it's almost like Bhagavan moves me from place to place only so that I can come closer to him. And for some reason, it stuck with me because it was so touching. So it's almost like everything that happens to you, you're being pushed by the hands of Bhagavan from here to there, from teacher to this, to friend, to here, to there. All because he is, a poetical version, is making you, coming closer to you and you coming closer to him. So if you could see the world in this way, could it not be a more pleasant place to enjoy yourself? Could it not be a more, kind of a place to relax and see that the world is not there to get you? It's not a hostile place, but it's really there, made for you to discover Bhagavan's presence in all things. How lovely, how beautiful would one live if they started to see from now on the situations in their life to be a gentle, kind offering to help you see your place in this grand scheme of things, that you are never outside Ishvara's order and you are a participant, and without you, the entire universe collapses because you're like a puzzle piece that completes the entire universe. And so you really do play a big part in this universe, and you just have to find your place in it. In fact, you've already found yourself. Some of us kind of resist our place and we think, no, I have not found my place. But most of us have found our place. In fact, you find your place very early on. And it's just a matter of now acknowledging that wherever you are, that's where you're supposed to be. So I wonder how easier could you start to see the world and relax in that understanding, in the lap of Ishvara, that you're never outside the lap of Ishvara, always held and guided towards your fullness. Therefore, this is one way to look at the world, and that is why staying in the world is so important. Therefore, it is not a place to, unless you want to experience pain. In fact, Vedanta is not for those who are experiencing pain, who want to get away from the world. It is not a place for those who are desperate, and they're in a bad shape, and they have, even for those who have Alzheimer's or dementia. Vedanta is not for these people because there's a certain kind of a limitation that a person carries upon them, that when Vedanta comes into one's life and they're carrying this resentment and they're nursing past hurts, then Vedanta, no matter what it is, it will either go over one's head and it will not be captured how it's meant to be, or it will not seem relevant because all the person wants is just to get rid of their pain. But Vedanta is not here to be a psychologist. Vedanta does not equal psychology. Psychology equals psychology. Vedanta comes to a relatively healthy mind that's ready and available to listen and to change its perspective about what it means to exist. And therefore, it is a place where you do need to work out your stuff relatively well, and which is called, Swami Dayananda calls it, working out your accounts with Ishvara, working your accounts out with Ishvara. And what this really means is that working out your unresolved accounts that are in a form of nursing some hurt, or this self-criticism, like he or she has done this towards me, which is the most common negative pattern. He or she has hurt me and I deserve better. But I encourage you to ask yourself, what role have you also played in whatever has happened? If there is some part that you have maybe even subconsciously communicated, it really makes me curious how much have you also contributed to whatever has taken place. Therefore, the first thing that we need to do is find a way, no matter what way it is, to settle your accounts with those that have hurt you, that have left some scars upon you, and they keep reappearing on the screen of your mind. If there is some character, some magical character who you have a lot of love for, or, you know, different forms of love for, what character would that be that they keep on reappearing on the screen of your mind? If you could draw them or write them out, what character would that be? And then what would you say to this character to say that, you know, I was nursing resentment towards you. I was blaming you for what has happened. But I also played some part in it. And I just want to let you know that it wasn't entirely your fault. I was equally, you know, negligent as much as you were. And I didn't know everything. You didn't know everything. What would you say to this person to work out your accounts with them? Imagine this person, this character on the screen of your mind were manifest in a gross form. How heavy would they be? And you had to carry them on your shoulders. Could you move freely? You want to go to work in the morning and you have to bear them. Could you carry them? Maybe for a short while. How tiresome would it become to carry them all day long, all month long, for 5 years? Makes me curious if you're willing to bear that kind of unfairness upon yourself, to carry such a character upon the screen of your mind, who has left some scar upon you, and they keep reappearing because you are yet to find a way to work your things out with them. Lorena?
Believe it or not, this is the most common thing that people say before they die. That burden of what I should have done, what I could have done, what I, you know, that regret, and that if only I did this. And that burden, that emotional burden and the physical burden of their body failing, it's the last thing that they say to me. And I try to say, imagine if you're everything you want to be right now. That's the thing that I say to them.
If you were asked to resolve any or sort out any unfinished business, or if there was some unfinished business that is yet to be finished, what business would that be? With whom? For what reason? And how would that business be resolved? In your own unique way. Not according to what Krishna says or what Andre says, what any Swami says, according to your way. Because we don't need prescriptions, as we said last session. We just need to be reminded that it is not fair upon you to carry burdens. You're not doing it for the other person. They don't even know that you're releasing them from your heart. It's for your sake, because you're the one that's carrying them. So can you afford to carry that person on the screen of your mind for any longer? In 5 years from now, how much pain would this cost you? How much honor and freedom would it cost you to bear this character or this thing or situation for 5 more years? How much more are you willing to be unfair upon yourself to leave this character or situation tightly clamped around your back, carrying a 60-pound mass of burden in this world for the next 5 years? And how quickly could you discover that this can be just as easily released, only as quick as choosing to? Because after all, you're an adult. Absolutely, it is possible. So one has to wonder, how much more unfairness do I want to bear upon myself? Do I deserve any better? Suppose the answer is yes, then what would follow that up? What kind of activity or action would follow up to release this baggage? So we can see that action has a big role in this world. And this is the platform which allows you to release this. And the more we do release it, the easier this knowledge sticks and is understood and relatable, and you're just able to relax in the fact that I no longer see the world. I see, like in Mundaka Upanishad, the heaven. I look up in the sky and I see his head. This is poetical. I see the intelligence. And then I see the 4 directions, which represent his hearing. So there's not one whisper that he doesn't hear. Nothing goes outside his awareness. And then the sun and the moon are no longer the sun and the moon. This is his eyes. His eyes, his radiant splendor, joy radiating out of his eyes, reflecting that brightness from the sun and the moon. And then the Vedas is his speech. When he speaks, he doesn't speak trivia, he speaks truth. And then the air that you breathe is his prana, his breath. When you breathe, it's not just air, it is Ishvara you're breathing in. And then the world that you walk upon, the earth you walk upon, is his feet. You're supported by his feet. And the world that you see is his mind. His visualization of characters called Lorena, Rani, Carol, Radhika, Andre, Vijay, Carrie, Stephen. It is his visualization, his projection of himself. See? So to have this, to enjoy this vision without it being going in and out, to have this kind of vision, that requires a relatively healthy mind. And the world gives you that mind. So Krishna is encouraging us, hey, the world is your best friend. You just have to perceive it as such. It was never your enemy. Let the world of politics, and this is all people's stuff. They do what they do. But you're here to understand something much, much higher. And that is your new Swadharma. That becomes your new way to live now. So this means what better place to recognize the Lord than the very place that you are located right now. You go to the Himalaya, I miss the earth. Now I'm no longer connected to the earth. Now I'm in the mountains, and I'm breathing cold air, and it's, now the sneeze, I have to constantly cough and so on. So in other words, you can always see the Lord wherever you are right now. So this is Krishna's message to us. Now, he reinforces in the next verse, and he says, not only is action healthy for you, but also you cannot give up action. So let's see what verse 5 says. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatutishtatya karmakrita karyate hyavashah karma sarvav prakriti jair gunaihi.
Indeed, no one ever remains for even a second without performing action, because everyone is forced to perform action by the 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, born of prakriti.
Krishna here says to us that it is impossible to avoid actions because your body and your mind is programmed like an appliance to act. And there is no question of not acting, because even not acting is simply an action. It's going to put you in a place where you're still going to act. So what matters is the place from which your action is coming from. And this is important. It's not a matter of stopping action or not performing action, but asking, from where is my action coming from? What's the intention behind my action? And you never know how far your action can take you. Did you ever have a time where you were inspired by something and you chose to act upon it. And after some time, maybe months or weeks or years later, you looked back and you were so glad. Not even glad. It was just kind of like, oh, that action has led me to this. Have you ever had a time like that? You know, in 2017, I made a software. I was doing Sanskrit, and it was very hard and slow to write Devanagari and the diacritics, the letters with the like dots. And I just didn't want to write. I wanted to type it out. So I created a software where you type in J, for example, and then you press equals, right? J. And then when you press equals on your keyboard, then it adds, sorry, not J, N. Now you know that N can have that. You can have this also. Or R can have dot underneath. You can also have the line above. So every time you press equals, it changes the letter. So this was just a spontaneous idea of mine. And I put it online, and it became a highly used tool by scholars and swamis who are trying to transliterate texts into Sanskrit. And this was totally innocent. Just create a software out of a need that I had, put it online, and people start to use it. And you're like, years later, you're like, I never even expected this would happen. So it makes me wonder, did you ever have an idea, an action, where that very action ended up helping you? You know, it made connections, it showed you, you know, what you're capable of, it gave you confidence. Did you ever have an action that you did, and after finishing it, you walked away with more reassurance in yourself? Did you ever have that? Yeah. Isn't that amazing to carry that confidence into Vedanta, where you develop that confidence and you said, I am capable, I am enough, I am deserving, and you carry that healthy attitude into Vedanta? Could that not help you? When Vedanta says you are the whole, your nature is not different from the whole, and you carry the exact same voice, I believe I can get this. Initially starts out as a belief, that's okay, but I can understand this. You see? So the world is your savior. 1941, there was a guy named George. He had a dog, and he was walking his dog in a flower field. And you know those flowers that have those spiky, they're called cockleburrs. They're like spiky little seeds on top of the leaf. And the dog was walking, and they were catching onto the dog's fur. Now, this fella called George went home and he studied these cockleburr seeds under a microscope to see how they catch onto the dog's fur. And he found a way to discover or build Velcro. You enjoy Velcro nowadays? Yes, indeed. There was a guy called John Walker, dipped a stick inside a chemical agent, and this chemical agent around the tip of the stick, it dried out, and he accidentally scratched it on the surface and it set fire. 1826. And he says, what can I do with this? He took action. That's how the match was born. What I want to show is that how, when you have an inspiration and you take action upon it, it can change your life. I'll go one example. 1992, Frappuccino. So the sales of coffee went down during hot weather. And this fella in Starbucks decided to create cold coffee. And so he showed it to his CEO, and they put it out for sale. And the sales shot up because now people were buying cold coffee, and it just exploded. Post-it notes. Find Post-it notes useful? That's what I meant by Mr. Art Fry, 1974. So he had this glue from 3M, and this glue was not too sticky, but he put it on a piece of paper, and he put this piece of paper on a Bible to capture the right position. And he found that this paper was not right. He could able to take it off. And he thought, oh, this is an interesting idea. I'll promote this to, I think it was 3M at the time. And he made this patent of his. That's how the Post-it notes were born. So you find an accidental invention, and then you take action, and it changes your life. So Krishna is saying here, hey, you have a divine calling in you. And if you listen, you know, that can take you a long way, because everyone has that divine inner voice in them speaking. But sometimes we stop ourselves. So if you could listen to that voice, you know, what would you say yes to? What kind of things would you say yes to? Have you not said yes to being here? Could that not be one of those voices? See, we always kind of look, no, what is that voice? I've not had a voice. But you are here already, wherever you are, because you've said yes in the past. So it's not like that voice is only in the future. It's always there. Now, there was a lady called Mel Robbins. She was 41 years old. She had children, and she often woke up late, and her kids would sometimes miss the school bus. And she was in an unhappy marriage, you know, a little bit kind of used to the whole routine, not very happy. And one day she turned on the TV and she saw a rocket launch. And the rocket launch says 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. And then she saw the moment that one, and then a rocket just launched. And she thought, what a great idea. What if I could just launch myself out of bed next morning and I just count down like the rocket, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the moment that one, no matter how I feel, I will just get up. And that's what she did. And that's how her formula, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 formula got born. And it's one of the great bestsellers in the world. She has one of the top views on TED Talk. And she says, basically, you will never, ever feel like doing it. There will never be a time when you feel like doing what is to be done. Never. That's a dream. So instead of waiting to feel like doing it, you just gotta do it whether you feel like it or not. Therefore, when that morning on Boston, it was Boston, she lives in Boston at that time, came cold in the morning, she had to wake up early in the morning. And she said, the moment I woke up, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I got up. Because if you wait after 5 seconds, you know what your brain does? You know, don't you? It will tell you the greatest story that's ever been told, why you should not. So before your brain has a chance to even tell you that, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, no matter what, whether you feel like it or not, get up, do it. And you will be very surprised how far this could send you. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and Om Purnamadav. Asha, you want to say something?
She calls it the 5-minute rule, and she says motivation is bullshit. And then she also says that your mind always tells you to never take any effort, or to, you know, doesn't want you to work hard, or doesn't want, it always wants to make you feel protective. And so it will give you the basic example. So it's beautiful. Her TED Talks and her absolutely worth listening to.
I tell you, it's life-changing. And yeah, I told you last week, you know, I love to run, and she helped me with that a lot. Just to get up early, no matter what, and just get up. Don't care how I feel, just go and do it. It's absolutely life-transforming to do that. Because then you discover that confidence that you can do it. There's no question of can't. And it's okay not to feel like it. Because that's what everyone is undergoing. So that's the first, that's what it says here. So you can either, says Krishna, do your actions based on Dharma, do what is to be done no matter what, or he says, or do it based on how you feel, on your likes and dislikes, what's comfortable, what's easy. But the problem with that is you will never feel like doing what you should be doing. You will always feel like doing what you want to do. Stay in the bed, not wake up, not exercise, and so on. There's a nice story, actually. I'll close with a Panchatantra story. So there's a story in Panchatantra called the Crow and the Eagle. And they were best friends. They were living in a peaceful place in a forest. And one day, the crow, living on high altitude, saw a hunter planting a trap for the deer. Now, the crow was in a conflict. If the crow thought to himself, told the deer, his friend, about the trap, the deer would run away and the crow would lose his best friend. The second option was that the crow doesn't say anything to the deer about this trap and hopes that the deer doesn't land in the trap. And the crow was in conflict because, as you know, when you're attached to someone and you're close to them, then you tend to opt in for not going into conflict, not saying what needs to be said, not doing what needs to be done. And that can cost you much later. It can cost you guilt. It can cost you dignity and your self-honesty. So the crow was in a conflict. And the crow decided, I need to do what needs to be done. I need to tell my deer, even though it can cost this friendship, that there is a trap and the deer needs to leave. I may scare the deer. That's the point. And the crow hesitantly told his friend, sorry to say, but there are traps in this area, and I just want to let you know. And the deer was so touched by this, knowing that the deers, they run, that's what they do, that the deer decided to stay and wait out until the traps were taken away. And the deer was so grateful to his friend and says, now I feel much more closer to you, that I can trust you, because you told me what needs to be said rather than you didn't hold it back from me. And so the deer was grateful that the crow did what has to be done. So it's a very nice story, showing you how, it's not easy always to do what needs to be said, to be honest. It's not so easy to do that. But you have to ask yourself, what is your gain by being honest? And your gain, you will discover, is always much larger in the big picture than your losses. There is a loss for sure, that's there, but your gains are much larger. If you say what needs to be said, and you will find how much you can enjoy that about yourself, and know that you've got nothing to hide, that you've done your part, and whatever happens, that was Ishwara's grand design, and you don't really have much of a calling there, but at least you can be proud, healthy proud in yourself that you had the strength to do what is to be done. The second option is, as we said, doing what is comfortable and easy. And this is what most opt in for, isn't it? Because it's the path of least resistance. There was an example like, Arjuna, he had this dislike for the Kauravas. And when he was exiled to the forest, what did he do with that dislike, that hatred? He was nursing that hatred, and he goes to Indra and gets divine weapons because he wants to decimate the Kauravas. So that's fine, but his action was coming from a sense of nursing that dislike. And then what happened on the battlefield? Same thing. He had a like. So in the forest, it's a dislike for the Kauravas, but on the battlefield, it is a like for the Kauravas. So what happened? He said, I can't kill my grandfather, Dronacharya, Bhishma, they're so close to me, they all have families. So again, he was coming from a certain personal investment. In both situations, he was not able to do what is to be done. See this? So whether you come from a place of doing something out of a dislike or a personal investment that is alike, both of them are coming from an intention that is not healthy. The first one from a hatred towards Kauravas, The second one, excessive love towards the Kauravas. And Krishna, therefore, had to spend 18 chapters to convince Arjuna to finally do what is to be done. It's not a matter of just one chapter. So this is nicely metaphorical, isn't it? Is it just a matter of listening to 17 sessions and then, one session and then you're cooked, you're finished, you've understood everything? No. Couples therapy, how many sessions does that take to really get to the bottom of the matter? One session? No. 18 sessions. How many times do you have to make a mistake until you realize I can't afford to make this mistake again? One mistake? No. 18 mistakes. How many chapters do you need to integrate this knowledge deeply in yourself so you radiate it outwards? One chapter? No. 18 chapters. So this shows you that anything in this world takes time. And that's okay that it takes time. So we can now take time to close this session with a prayer. And remember, prayer is also an action, just like any other action. For example, if I say to you, go and do some, go get a job, right? You go get a nice job, for example, and you do action. So you do one action and you do another action. So that's 2 points now, 2 points, because you did 2 actions, and one action is 1 point, another action is another point. Now, suppose to get a job, you need 3 points, and you pray. How many points does a prayer give you? Half a point. So 1 + 1 = 2, plus a half equals 2.5. But you still don't get what you wanted. Does that mean that the prayer didn't work? No, it just means that the prayer is an action, so it contributed a variable in your favor, but it was just not enough to give you what you want. So even a prayer can help you, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just means that it was not quite enough to help you get something. So that's where prayers have a huge benefit in your life. So pray. Whatever you want, you can pray. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam eva avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.